Hello viewers, my name is Sunetra and it's our third session on Internet of Things. Before we dive into it, we'll just have a summary on our second session. In our second session, we have discussed about IoT sensors and its devices with some actuators along with it. And we have seen the working of sensors and actuator in IoT use cases. After that, we have seen some future sensor trends and even we have seen some targeted boards in IoT such as Arduino, Raspberry Pi, Intel Edison, UNDO-NEW, Particle Proton, ESP8266 IC Broad. After that, we had a deep dive into the IoT connectivity technologies such as gateway and the middleware. Even we have discussed about IoT cloud architecture. Into that, we have seen what is the need of cloud computing in the Internet of Things. After that, we have seen some properties and the characteristics of cloud computing. And lastly, we have discussed about some API models in Internet of Things and with their drives, management and their anatomy. Even we have seen some 7 patterns of API management. So this was a brief summary that we had covered in our second session. Now today we'll understand what is the architecture reference model, that is ARM in Internet of Things, and we'll have a brief explanation about layers. After that, we'll see some types of network topologies. Even we'll go through some IoT standards and its protocol, into which we'll understand different protocols related to the respective layers and some architecture reference model. Okay, then let's start today's session with ARM of IoT. ARM, I mean to say, is Architecture Preference Model. As we know, IoT is an umbrella term that includes multiple different categories, whereas such as examples, wireless sensors and actuator networks, some internet connected wearables, low power embedded systems, RFID enabled tracking, use of mobile phones to internet with the real world, device and connect via Bluetooth enabled mobile phones to the internet and the smart homes. Even we have some connected cars and many more. So as a result, that is not a single architecture will suit all these areas and requirements. Each area is special for us. So however, a modular scalable architecture that supports adding or subtracting capabilities, as well as supporting many requirements across a wide variety of these all cases inheritedly useful and valuable. It provides a starting point for architecture looking to create IoT solutions as well as some strong basis for further developments. The reference architecture must cover multiple aspects, including the cloud or the server-side architecture that allows us to monitor, manage, interact with the process and the data from the IoT devices. The networking model to communicate with devices and some agent and the code on the devices themselves, as well as the requirements on what sort of device can we support the reference architecture. So as you see, these are some reasons that we should have some reference architecture for our IoT. Now we'll see some reasons why we should go for reference architecture for IoT. The first can be IoT devices are inherently connected. We need a way to interacting with them, often with the firewalls and the network address translation and the other obstacle in the way. The second reason can be there are billions of these devices already in the market and the number is growing quickly. We need an architecture for a scalability. In addition, these devices are typically interacting 24/7, gathering the data from their environment. So we need a highly available approach to that support development across the data centers, which allows disaster recovery. The third reason can be the devices may not have UIs and they certainly are designed to be of everyday usage. So we need to support all automatic and the manage updates as well as bring some able to remotely manage these devices. One more reason that we can have why we should have the architecture reference model for our IoT project is like IoT devices are very commonly used for collecting and analyzing personal data. So a model for managing its identity and access control for IoT devices and the data they publish and consume in the key requirement. So these are the reasons why we should go for ARM in our IoT. So while architecturing this reference model, or you can say while building this architecture reference model, there are some specific requirements for IoT that are unique to the IoT devices and the environments that supports them. For example, many requirements emerge from their limited form factors and the power availability to that IoT devices. Other requirement comes from the way in which the IoT devices are manufactured and used. The approaches are much more like to traditional consumer product designs and than existing internet approaches. Of course, there are number of existing best practice for these several sides of internet connectivity that need to be remembered and factored in. So we can just summarize the all requirements into the key categories such as connectivity and the communication, then device management, then the next factors and the requirement that we need to build an architecture reference model is data collection and analysis and actuation as well, scalability, security, predictive analysis and some integration. So after understanding the requirements that we need to build architecture reference model in Internet of Things, we'll just see what are the different layers that we have in our ARM. The reference architecture consists of set of components such as layers can be realized by means of specific technology. And we will discuss options for analyzing each of the component. There are also some cross-cutting vertical levers such as access, identity and the management. As you can see on the screen, as we have seen, what are the requirements to build architecture reference model in Internet of Things. Now we'll move further and we'll understand different layers that consist in our architecture of a reference model. The reference architecture consists of set of components. Some layers can be realized by means of specific technologies, and we will discuss options for realizing each component separately. There are also some cross-cutting vertical layers such as access and the identity management. So we can say in short, basically we should have some client and external communication layer which is dedicated to web portal, dashboard and the APIs. Then we should have some event processing and the analytical layer where actual data storage is happening. Then we'll need some aggregation or some bus layers where ESB and the message broker protocols will be used. Even we'll have relevant transportation layer where MQTT, HTTP and XMPP, or you can use COAP and AMQP etc. protocols for data transformation. And lastly, we may have a device layer as also. So we'll go one by one layer separately. In the device layer, the bottom layer of the architecture is a device layer. Device can be various types but in order to consider as an IoT device only. That means we are talking about embedded devices that can be easily connected with the internet. They must have some communication that either indirectly or directly attached to the internet. Examples of direct connections, if you want to have an example of a direct connection, that can be Arduino to Arduino Ethernet connection, or Arduino to UN with Wi-Fi connection, Raspberry Pi connected via internet or the via Wi-Fi, or we can also connect Internet Galileo via Ethernet or Wi-Fi. These are the examples of indirectly connected devices. Sorry, these were the directly connected devices. If you want to go for the indirectly connected devices, then you can go for Zigbee devices connected via Zigbee gateways. Then we can have Bluetooth or Bluetooth low energy devices connecting via a mobile phone. And in the next indirectly connected device can be communicating via low power radios or with the other controllers. You can say Raspberry Pi, Arduino. So these kind of all devices are included in our devices layer. Each device is typically need an identity. The identity may or may not be as following. A unique identifier, that is UUID, burned into the device, typically the part of system on chip or provided by the secondary chip. The second one can be a UUID provides by the radio subsystems, for example Bluetooth identifier, or we can use Wi-Fi MAC addresses. The third we have is an OA-Youth2, that refresh breaker token. This may be an addition to the one of the above types. And the last one we have like some identifiers stored in the innovatable memory such as EEPROM. So in this way we can have some identity to our devices which are lies in our device layers. For the reference architecture, we recommended that every device should have some UID. This means that preferably an unchangeable ID provided by the core hardware, as well as it can known as OA-Youth2 refresh and the bearer token stored in your EEPROM. These all are specifications based on HTTP. However, as we already discussed in the communication section, that the reference architecture should support this flow over the MQTT protocol. Not to worry children, we will just see all the protocols in our next slides. Now we will move further and we will understand the communication layer in our architecture. In the communication layer, this layer supports the connectivity of all the devices that lies under our devices layer. There are multiple potential protocols for communication between these devices and the cloud. If you want to understand the most well-known three potential protocols that we can use under our communication layers, then they are HTTP or HTTPS. The second one we have is MQTT 3.1 version or 3.1.1 version. Then the next we can have some constraint application protocol. We can call it as COAP. Now let's have a quick look over each of this protocol in turn. First we'll see HTTP and HTTPS. HTTP is well known and there are many libraries that supports it. Because it is a simple text-based protocol, many small devices such as 8-bit controller or can be a partially supported protocol. For example, enough code to post or get resources. The larger 32-bit based devices can also utilize HTTP client libraries that can properly implement the whole protocol. Now we see MQTT 3.1 version protocol. There are several protocols optimized for IoT use, but the two best known are MQTT6 and COAP7 protocols. MQTT was invented in 1999. Actually, it is invented to solve issues like in embedded systems and the SCADA. It has been through though irritations, and some current versions like 3.11 is undergoing standardization in OASIS and MQTT technical committees. MQTT's published subscribe messaging systems based on the broker model. The protocol has a very small overhead, as little as your 2 byte per message, and was designed to support loosely and intermediately connected networks. MQTT was designed to flow over TCP. TCP, a kind of a protocol that we are talking about. And in addition, there is an associated specification design for ZigBee style network called as MQTT/SN, that is sensor network. So we'll move further for our third protocol that we can use in our communication layer, that is COAP, Constraint Application Protocol. So COAP is a protocol from IETF that is designed to provide RESTful applications. And this protocol modeled on HTTP semantics, but with the much smaller footprints and the binary rather than the text-based approaches. COAP is more traditional client-server approach rather than brokered approach. COAP is designed to be based on over the UDP. So friends, I hope you understand these three protocols that we can use in our communication layer. As we have seen these three protocols, but if for the reference architecture, if we have to opt to select only MQTT as a preferable device communication protocol with some HTTP as alternative option can be there. But why is the reason to select MQTT and not for the COAP at this layer or at this stage? So the reason can be better adoption and the wider library supports for MQTT is available. It simplifies bringing into the existing event collection and event processing system. The third reason can be the simpler connectivity over the firewall and NAT networks. However, both protocols have specific strength or weaknesses as well. And so, there will be some situation where COAP may be preferable and Cloud be swapped in. In order to support MQTT, we need to have the MQTT broker in the architecture as well as the device libraries. We'll discuss this regards to the security and the scalability layer later. One important aspect with the IoT devices is not just for the device to send the data to the cloud or the server, but also it should be reverse. This is the one benefit that MQTT specification has because it is a brokered model. Client connected, outbound connections to be brokered. Whether or not to be, the device is acting as a publisher or as a subscriber. This usually avoids firewall problems because this approach works even behind firewalls via NAT networks. In the case where the main communication is based on HTTP, the traditional approach of sending data to the device would be use HTTP pooling. This is very inefficient and costly, both in the terms of network traffic as well as power requirements. The modern replacement of this is like some WebSockets Protocol 9 that allows HTTP connections to be upgraded into the full two-way communication. These then act as a socket channel similar to the pure TCP channel between the server and the client. Once that has been established, it is up to the system or to choose ongoing protocols through the tunnel over the connection. So we can say for the reference architecture, we'll once again recommend MQTT as a protocol with some WebSockets. In some cases, MQTT over the WebSockets will be only protocol. This is because it is even more firewall friendly than the base MQTT specification, as well as some supporting pure browser and the JavaScript client using the same protocol. Here we can have a note that while there are some supports of WebSockets on a small controller such as Arduino, the combination of network code, HTTP and the WebSockets would utilize most of the available code space on the typical Arduino 8-bit device. Therefore, we only recommend to use WebSockets on the larger 32-bit devices. So hope you understand the use of the protocol in the communication layer. Now we'll move further to see bus layer, or we can say aggregation layer. This is an important layer of architecture. This is a kind of aggregates and the broker communication layer we have. And why it is important? Then there are the three reasons why this bus layer or aggregation layer is very important. The first reason can be the ability to support HTTP server and an MQTT broker to talk to the device. The second reason can be the ability to aggregate and combine communication from different devices and to route all the communication to the specific device, possibly via gateway. Third reason can be the ability to bridge and transfer between these different protocols. For example, to offer HTTP based APIs that are mediate into the MQTT message ongoing to the devices. So friends, you can understand the aggregation or the bus layer provides these all abilities and the capabilities as well as adapting into the legacy protocol. The bus layer may also provide some simple correction that mapping from different correction models. Examples may be mapping a device ID into your owner's ID or vice versa. Finally, that we can say aggregation or a burst layer needs to be performed two key security rules. It must be able to act as a OAuth 2 or resource server which validate bearer tokens and associated with the resource access scopes. It must also be able to act as a policy enforcement point. Shortly, it can be called as PEP for policy based access. In this model, the bus makes requests to the identity and access management layer to validate access request. The identity and the access management layer acts as a policy decision point. We can call as PDP in the process. The bus layer then implements the result of this call to the PDP to either allow or disallow resources access.